For Progressive Voices, I'm John Sinton, and this is a turning point. Today, social media, again. It can't be said enough. Social media is the Trojan horse of democracy. We should have listened to the ancient warning about geeks bearing gifts. Social media arrived at the gates of our city as a gift from the technologists. It was shiny and new and full of promise of a new day. One where levers of connection and communication weren't controlled by a few TV networks, talk show hosts, or major newspapers. We didn't know then that it also carried the highly communicable social diseases of disinformation and anonymous rage. It simply promised to give voice to all, and boy, did it. The Trojans also should have warned us about unintended consequences. For better and worse, everyone now has a voice. No longer does society operate from a single playbook where the distinction between good and evil is apparent to all. It didn't take long for nefarious forces to co-opt this tool intended to bring us together by letting us talk to each other without the media acting as middleman. We've always had a dark side that spurs the ongoing war between good and evil. That which was meant to bring us together is tearing us apart instead of, or more charitably, in addition to bringing us together, it has sown the seeds of division and discontent. And because there is no barrier to entry, no need to identify yourself or take responsibility for what you post, much of social is now a cesspool of bullying, intimidation, phony research, and name-calling. Those on the margins whose intent was always to force their will on the rest of us, but whose numbers had historically been too small and whose dangerous ambitions too transparent, have found each other and leveraged social media to the degree that their voices, once distant and weak, compete at the same volume as mainstream society. That rings more true than ever now that the Justice Department has identified a rat's nest of Russia and China-funded, seemingly legit American businesses that paid prominent right-wing trolls to distribute the Kremlin's divisive lies to their millions of followers. Free speech and the First Amendment are our greatest assets, but they are also our biggest vulnerabilities. From the Wall Street Journal, we get this, quote, Chinese government-backed trolls are targeting U.S. voters ahead of the 2024 presidential election, assuming fake identities of politically engaged voters on social media to promote divisive narratives around issues including gun control, racial inequality, and the Israel-Hamas war, according to new research, unquote. Needless to say, the Chinese government denies this. The group calls itself Spamiflage, and it's reminiscent of the final scene in Casablanca where Captain Renault, played by Claude Rains, says to Humphrey Bogart's, Ricky, I'm shocked to learn that there's gambling in your establishment. Shocked, I tell you, as a subordinate hands him a fistful of money and says, Your winnings, Capitan. Their goal seems to be to instill chaos rather than promote one candidate over another. At this moment, TikTok is the most used platform for such divisive propaganda. Anxious to maintain its hold in the United States, the official word from them is that they try very hard to root out such misinformation. Just about as believable as Captain Renault. Quote, we relentlessly pursue and publicly report on the covert influence operations we remove on an ongoing basis, the TikTok spokeswoman said. She added, we will continue to remove deceptive accounts and harmful misinformation as we protect the integrity of our platform during the U.S. elections. Unquote. More like as we protect our bottom line. Anyway, MSNBC host Rachel Maddow spoke to independent journalist Oliver Darcy, and she said this, in a single news cycle this week, we saw a former Trump campaign advisor indicted federally for his financial ties to sanctioned state-run Russia media. And we saw the Justice Department shut down dozens of websites designed to look like news outlets that were secretly run by Russia and were promoting Donald Trump and trying to turn Americans against each other. We saw very high-profile pro-Trump right-wing influencers revealed to be on the payroll, the very generous payroll, of the Russian government. Our most determined enemy believes that their best tactic for weakening the United States is to spend hand over fist to put Trump back in the White House, Maddow continued. Putin is not a guy who is messing with our elections because he wants what's best for us. He's trying to destroy the United States, or at least hurt us as much as he can, and he sees the best way to do that is by helping the Trump movement. And I just think that deserves some self-reflection on the right, unquote. The social networks are our current Frankenstein monsters, rife with unexpected and unintended consequences, hardly any of them good. The social networks, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and YouTube are easy entrance ramps to the misinformation freeway. Let the buyer beware. For Progressive Voices, I'm John Sinton.
Progressive Voices' John Sinton has written a continuing series called A Turning Point that touches on politics, culture, and media. You can hear the short essays in the on-demand section of progressivevoices.com and on the PV app. PV brings you the best progressive audio and video in one free stream. Stephanie Miller, Tom Hartman, Randy Rhodes, David Packman, Brad Friedman, and more. Search Progressive Voices on the TuneIn app. Download the free Progressive Voices app or go to progressivevoices.com.